Shalom, giving all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakadash. Double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, all and shalom to all of you, Akim, that are teaching this word and pushing this truth around the globe with faith and truth and sincerity. I am the brother Caleb from the GMS London Forecasters Camp, coming back at you with another lesson to help edify the Lord's elect. As always, I begin by saying that we are the real Hebrew Israelites. The real Israelites, these so-called Negroes, Latinos, Hispanics, Native Americans, West Indians and West Africans predominantly. However, you are going to find Israelites that do look like the other nations, because we as a people have been scattered amongst all nations throughout our various captivities. But if your seed line by your forefathers goes back to the man in the Bible that was named Israel, then you too are an Israelite, no matter what you may look like, because the book of Numbers, chapter 1 and verse 18 states that your nationality is determined by the lineage of your forefathers. And once again, the names that we give reverence unto are Yahweh, which is the one true name of the God of the Bible. His name is Yahweh, which means he is or he exists. He is the Ancient of Days. And his son's name, which is the one that the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, his name is Yahweh Shai, whose name means he saves or he delivers in the Hebrew. So I want to talk about something that's going on in the news over here in the UK. They've got this issue where a lot of people are finding out the truth of how the government operates, where they'll be telling the public one thing, but yet behind the scenes, a lot of the politicians are doing the exact thing which they're commanding the people not to do. And it's being exposed more because, as we know, this government is run by the Edomites, which are the so-called white people predominantly on the face of the earth. And this is part of the Most High bringing them towards the end of their kingdom, because before they get destroyed, the Most High is revealing their iniquity. So I'm going to read this article and I'm going to speak a bit upon it, because there were some things that I thought when I was listening to the news earlier on. I was listening to the news on the radio, and a couple of things pertaining to prophecy entered into my mind. But I'm going to read this article just to give a bit of context to what I'm going to say. So this is from the Daily Mirror, which is a newspaper here in the UK. It says, Sue Gray has photos of Boris Johnson with wine bottles at Downing Street parties. Now, this is funny because it doesn't say party, it says parties. And the interesting thing is that when the lockdowns were occurring, you had some of these politicians, like, for example, this woman over here called Priti Patel, who is instructing people in the public to report their neighbours if they have more than, say, 3 guests in their home. And they were accusing people of having lockdown parties and fining people for sitting outside and drinking wine on a bench in a park and stuff, drinking beer, I should say, in a park on a bench. People were getting fined for all this shit, but yet behind the scenes, the politicians were having parties themselves, while they were telling people that you can't visit your elderly grandma, you can't have no birthday parties and shit like that because it's social distancing and lockdowns. But yet these motherfuckers were doing exactly what they were commanding the people not to do behind closed doors. And this even follows on from a lesson I'd done maybe a month or two ago, maybe in December. It might not be that long ago, but time flies. In December, it came out that traces of cocaine were found in the Houses of Parliament. Now, the Houses of Parliament are where these prime ministers are supposed to meet and to delegate and discuss the issues pertaining to how they're going to govern the country. But yet traces of cocaine were found in places where you could only access with high-level security passes, and they're the private offices of Boris Johnson and, as I said, this other woman, Priti Patel. So these guys be having these parties, snorting coke, doing all kind of shit. And to me, it's hilarious because I never believed in this government anyway. But now the public backlash has been immense, because now the public who actually believed in this illusion and delusion of democracy, these people who come home and they believe everything they see on BBC News and ITV and all that bullshit and Sky News and whatever, their illusions are being, I should say, the scales are beginning to fall from their eyes. They're beginning to realize, hang on a minute, these people are actually corrupt, and these are the people who are actually supposed to be governing the country. So let me read this article, then I'll say a couple of things on it pertaining to prophecy. It says, Sue Gray has photos of Boris Johnson with wine bottles at Downing Street parties. Downing Street officials have handed over photos of parties, including images of Boris Johnson and wine bottles, to her investigators, according to reports. Calls for Mr. Johnson to quit grew tonight. Now, this is funny because people seem to think that, oh, well, if Boris Johnson steps down and we put a new Prime Minister in there, everything will get better. No, it's not going to get better because it's the same people from the same group of people that are being elected to be the leaders of this country. See, the whole two-party system is a fallacy, and this goes back to the ancient Roman Empire. You know, it's like the illusion of democracy in thinking that, oh, well, you've got a choice because you can vote for either one of these two parties. Well, really, they're all pushing the agenda of the elite banking families, but the general public are too stupid to understand that. So here they are having this outcry, like, yeah, we got to get Boris Johnson out and put a new Prime Minister in there. Well, guess what? It doesn't matter who you put in there because they're all going to be following the same battle plan. The same plan that's been drawn up by the elite banking families to lead society further towards the New World Order and ultimately the MOTB. That's their plan. But really, it's the plan of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, because the scriptures say, the heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord, and he turneth it whithersoever he will. So ultimately, these people, they think they're doing their own agenda and working for their God, which is the spiritual demon Satan. But really, Satan is actually working on behalf of the Most High. So he's got these people, these elite banking families, in a trick bag where they're thinking that they're actually doing something to outsmart the Lord and to offset prophecy, when really they're actually helping to further prophecy. In fact, we want them to hurry up and instigate their flipping shit, because the sooner they do that, the sooner Yahushua is going to come back and destroy this place and put us in the position of rulership, which is what was the blessing given unto the seed of Abraham. And that blessing went upon Abraham down to Isaac and rested upon his son Jacob, who became Israel, and therefore has fallen upon all the descendants of Israel. But really, it's the elect who are going to receive the blessing, because the elect won't get destroyed. You see, the 2/3 of Israel is going to be destroyed on this side, and they're going to have to come back into the kingdom, not on foot, but through the loins of the elect. But that's another lesson for another time. Let me stay on this topic, right? It says, Boris Johnson could face a grilling by police over Partygate after Scotland Yard finally caved into public pressure to launch an investigation. And the PM's political future is hanging in the balance as Sue Gray's report into number 10 lockdown bashes may be published tomorrow. Downing Street officials have handed over photos of parties, including images of Mr. Johnson and wine bottles, to investigators, according to reports. Met Police Chief Dame Cressida Dick confirmed, and this is off anyway, how you going to have a flipping woman as a police chief over everybody else? What does the scripture say, man? I suffer not a woman to teach nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence, you know? So this shows that this so-called God-fearing country ain't right at all. But then it even goes to the top, because you've got the Queen of England, you know, ruling over the people. You ain't supposed to have the Queen ruling over the people, because the woman's not supposed to usurp authority over the man. You're really supposed to have a king governing over the people. But in this society, you know, Esau does everything off. So let's keep moving. It says, Met Police, Dame Cressida Dick confirmed officers will look into a number of events where COVID lockdown rules were said to have been broken in Whitehall. Calls for Mr. Johnson to quit over the scandal grew tonight. Deputy Labour leader Angela Rayner questioned how he can remain in a post of number 10 under police investigation. She said Boris Johnson is a national distraction. Indeed he is. Conservative MP should stop propping him up and should finally do the decent thing and resign. And he should finally do the decent thing and resign. Like, that's going to make a difference. Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey added, We got here because the PM can't tell the truth. He's lied continually. What do you expect from Esau, man? Psalms 58 verse 3. Let me get that for edification's sake. Psalms 58 verse 3, what does it say? The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. You know? Let me read on. Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They are like the deaf adder that stoppeth her ear, which cannot hearken to the voice of charmers, charming never so wisely. Here's what the Most High is going to do. This is what King David called for the Most High to do. Break their teeth, O power, in their mouth. Break out the great teeth of the young lions, O Yahweh. Let them melt away as the waters which run continually. When he bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows, let them be cut in pieces, which is exactly what's going to happen, because the nations are gearing up for war. That's another lesson in itself, because, there's harsh words being exchanged about the possibility of Russia entering into Ukraine, which, Lord willing, I should do a lesson on that maybe tomorrow, Lord willing. But tensions have been rising, and ultimately these nations are going to shoot their arrows at America. They're going to launch their nukes. Russia's going to shoot their nukes at America. It says all these other nations are going to burn her with fire. The beast shall hate a whore and shall burn her utterly with fire. I believe that's in Revelation chapter 17. Verse 8 here, Psalms 58 and 8. As a snail which melteth away, let every one of them pass away, like the untimely birth of a woman, that they may not see the sun. Now that's very harsh words, man. Asking for someone to be as an untimely birth of a woman, that's like a child that's born prematurely and dies. That's a very harsh words that King David was saying about the wicked. So who are the wicked? The wicked pertaining to Malachi 1 verse 4 are you Edomites. Prove that. Malachi 1 and 4. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahweh have indignation forever. Harsh words from the Most High. So that's who the wicked is, the Edomites. Let's continue. Former government whip Sir Robert Sims said, I think the Prime Minister really ought to consider his position. We're going to get paralysis in government for months, and that's not good for the country. Mr. Johnson will face further pressure at PMQs, where he's expected to face a barrage of demands to step down. The Mirror has been told civil servant Miss Gray's report will come within days, and even as early as tomorrow, despite the police probe. The government sources had initially claimed it would not be published until after the Met investigation was completed, sparking fears it was being kicked into the long grass. Then Number 10 suggested the findings could be published partially, with events being looked at by Scotland Yard left out. But after the Met said it had no objection to the full report being published, Downing Street ruled out any delay. Miss Gray's office said the investigation being carried out by Sue Gray is continuing. There's ongoing contact with the Metropolitan Police Service. The document in its entirety was being sent to Number 10, but the final decision on how much of it will be made public is for the PM. Dame Cressida insisted her force would police without fear or favour when asked why she had not launched a probe earlier. She told the London Assembly, I absolutely understand there is deep public concern about the allegations that have been made over the last several weeks. Many people, including Londoners and my colleagues, have made huge sacrifices and they've suffered considerable loss due to the pandemic. Dame Cressida Dick would not say which parties were under investigation, but it comes 2 months after the Mirror first reported on lockdown bashes. Mr. Johnson initially denied any had taken place. Then he said they had but did not know about them. He is believed to have attended at least half a dozen. My man was getting it in. He is believed to have attended at least half a dozen of the gatherings, even if only for a short time, while the rest of the country faced a string of restrictions. See, this is the same government that was telling you that if one of your relatives died, you couldn't go to the funeral. Only 4 people were allowed to the funeral and shit like that. So you got a lot of people who were in care homes and weren't allowed to have family members come to visit them and shit like that. And they ended up dying, lonely and, in very sort of grim circumstances because, we need 3 weeks to flatten the curve. Just 3 weeks to flatten the curve, they said. Then 3 weeks turned into flipping damn near I don't even remember how long the lockdowns were because I was enjoying them personally. But all these people who thought they were doing the right thing by face, space. What did they say? Was it? Is it mask, face, space? All this social distancing bullshit. 6 feet apart. If you go out, you're only allowed to go out for half an hour, and only around your local area. All this kind of shit, man. These people, these fucking muppets, dare I say, yeah, they're muppets, right? They believed all the shit that the television was telling them. They believed what all their ministers were telling them. So they were living in fear. Like, you walk into the supermarket, right? And you might stand behind someone in the queue, and they're looking at you like you're fucking like you've got Ebola or something like that, because you happen to be standing a little too close to them or something like that in the queue. These people were bugging out. Now the funny thing is that now they've made all these sacrifices. Now they're realizing that the people who were ruling them they were having fun. They were partying it up, living like what's that stupid saying? Living la vida loca or whatever. They were living it up. And what else is it? See now, this is what it's gonna. This isn't by coincidence. This is by design. The reason why Esau's pushing this story to the public is because now people are feeling disgruntled about the sacrifices they made during the first lockdowns. So when the next lockdown comes, and it will come, these people are going to be more riled up, more likely to rebel against the authorities, because they're going to be like, well, why should we lock down when the government was having parties and stuff last time? Now, what's that going to cause? That's going to cause civil unrest. This is why I'm saying, this is what I was meditating earlier on when I was thinking about the news as I was listening to it on the radio. This is all going to stir up civil unrest, because things are going a bit too slow, especially over here, right? Because Esau's been trialing these lockdowns and stuff, really testing them to see how the public will react. And over here in England, people are pretty docile for the most part. There's not very often that riots happen in London. I think the last one that happened was it 2011, and that was all flipping what do you call it? False flag anyway, just to stir up the people. And they were watching to see, how the people would react, what they'd do and stuff. But for the most part, riots don't usually break out here in the UK, because people are very sort of like, oh, well, we have to believe in democracy, and, we have to trust our elected officials because they'll do things for us. So when people get disgruntled over here, it takes a while for them to really sort of get agitated to the point where they start breaking shit down. Well, in order to exasperate that, this is just my hypothesis on the situation. This is my take on it. In order to exasperate that, what they've done is they've leaked these information about, what's going on in government and these secret parties and stuff, in order to build up that level of frustration to the point where the people are going to start rising up. Because what Esau wants, what you've got to remember, is he wants to bring in his new world order. This whole system of people going out to vote and, conservative, Labour, blah, 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 all this shit's coming to an end, because in the new world order, the government is going to be the government, and there's not going to be no say from the people. You're just going to be a subservient servant who has no say in what takes place in the government. It's just going to be, this is the authority, comply or die. That's what it's coming down to. So all this flipping, oh, well, we need to replace Boris Johnson with a new prime minister and things will get better. That's all bullshit. And the people believe that because they're so flipping small-minded and uneducated. They've been indoctrinated into the concept that we can choose who our leaders are, and if you vote for party A or party B, it actually makes a difference. That's all the illusion. That's giving you the illusion of power and democracy, when in fact it's not a democracy at all. It's just the illusion of it, because the real people who make the decisions are the people that you don't see. Boris Johnson, he's just a puppet. Keir Starmer, all these other party leaders, they're just puppets, man, and they're following the agenda of the elite banking families. So there's three main points, dare I say, that the elite banking families want to bring into reality. First of all is the MOT being the mark of the beast, right? That's their main agenda. Secondly, depopulation, so they want a lot of people to die off, right? And thirdly, as I said before, the complete control, unwavering, unchallenged control over the people that remain on the earth. They don't want to be voted out of power. They don't want someone else to rise up and take their seat of authority. They want to have complete dominion on the earth. So my point is this: in order to accelerate, like for example, in science, you've got something known as a catalyst. Like if you're doing a chemical reaction might say like take say 12 hours, right? Let's say you're making something and it takes 12 hours for something to reach its new state in science. I'm just using this as a rough hypothetical analogy, right? So let's say you want to get something from state A to state B, you mix it up and it's supposed to harden in say 12 hours, right? You could sit there and you could wait for 12 hours, or if you could find a compatible catalyst, you could accelerate the rate of the reaction. So for example, rather than it taking 12 hours for something to reach its new state in the chemical process, if you add a particular catalyst, you might be able to accelerate that process so then it could happen in maybe 6 hours or 4 hours. That's basically how a catalyst works in science, right? Not that I'm a science expert, but I'm just using what I know from what I studied at school. So what I'm saying is that this chemical reaction that Esau's trying to do, which is to get a reaction from the people so that they can come down with martial law, come down very heavy-handed on the people, is taking too long because the British people, for the most part, are very docile. So therefore, in order to accelerate the rate of reaction, they've added this catalyst, which is, Boris Johnson and they were having parties in number 10 Downing Street and blah, 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 blah. They've put this story out into the public, right? In order to accelerate the rate of reaction, because what this does, this builds up distrust in the people and also resentment in the people and a lot of anger. And they're just going to keep feeding into that until eventually they get the people to snap and to try and rise up against their government, which then ties into biblical prophecy, because the devil, knowing that he have a short time, is going to come down with great wrath. So in order for him to come down with great wrath, he has to have an excuse to do it. So this is me just analyzing the situation for the spirit. That's why these stories are making it into the news and they're being blown up on mainstream media, so that these people who actually thought, I didn't visit my granny because I was scared I'd give her C19, so I stayed away, and then she died in a care home and I'm never going to see her again while these motherfuckers are having parties. That's the sort of reaction they want to get, because what you've got to remember is that the media is just a tool to turn the minds of the people, whithersoever the people who actually run the shadow government want to turn it. Because none of these newspapers can publish a story without it being greenlit by the authorities, which you don't see, which are, as I said, the elite banking families who run the shit behind the scenes. So I don't need to read any more of this article because I've made the point. But I will, just for edification's sake. Right. I'll read it for edification's sake. It says, Downing Street confirmed PM was prepared to be interviewed, saying he would cooperate fully with the police inquiry. And this is the funny thing, because as I said, I remember seeing the news video where Priti Patel was saying, if you know that your neighbours are having in, more than 4 people, you should report them to the authorities. Basically trying to tell people to snitch on other people, and ratting them and turn them in and all this kind of shit, while these arseholes were sitting there partying up in Downing Street, right? Right, it says, but his spokesman added that it was fair to say that he does not believe he had broken COVID laws. Many Tory MPs are awaiting the outcome of Miss Gray's report before deciding Mr. Johnson's fate. The PM has spent much of his time trying to persuade them not to trigger a confidence vote, but he kept cabinet ministers in the dark over the police investigation, which was launched during their meeting today. And today only, Jacob Rees-Mogg and Tory MP Conor Burns leapt to his defence. The leader of the House claimed the leadership in this country has had under Boris Johnson has been so brilliant, he has got all the big decisions right during the pandemic. Now, this is the funny thing, right? And this shows how stupid the people are, because what? Are you telling me Boris Johnson was the only one in the party? So if they're calling for him to resign, why aren't they calling for the other MPs that attended the party to resign? See, this is how stupid the fucking British public are, man. They think that, oh, well, it's his fault because he's the PM and if he goes, everything will be better. No, the whole lot of them are in on it, man. So what, is he at the party by himself? It's not much of a party if you're the only one there. You know what I'm saying? So whoever was in attendance, why are they not being held to the same standard of scrutiny? This is all some bullshit and a smokescreen, as I said. It says, but critics would be quick to point out to a string of blunders such as locking down late and opening up early that experts fear may have cost lives as evidence against Mr. Rees-Mogg boasts. Northern Ireland Minister Mr. Burns said, not from The Simpsons, from Northern Ireland, Mr. Burns said of the birthday bash claims, it was not a premeditated, organised party in that sense that the Prime Minister himself decided to have. As far as I can see, he was, in a sense, ambushed with a cake. They came to his office with a cake, they sang happy birthday, he was there for 10 minutes. I don't think most people looking at that at home would characterise that as a party. So that's the end of it. So let's read some of these comments. There seems to be a few. Let's see what people are saying, yeah? Are the police going to look at the video of Captain Hindsight at his works bash bear in hand? Okay, hands in the air who hasn't had a few extra pals over for a beer or three during the lockdown. Come on now. I did. If Johnson can pick and choose what is published, then the whole thing is farcical. It is a farce. They will call it a storm in a teacup. This is Boris, the bull. He won't budge or nudge. It's all fudged, as he may get away with it. How can any human stand in humiliation when the country are at their knees? The world laughs at us, yet this Tory says I am still standing, and I'll drink to the brink, yet you're stinkers. It's a cool 2022 for us. We pay for his mistakes, and he gets a healthy bonus. Where is the humiliation? What has actually been proven? That's why we await the report, is it not? See, so people are getting riled up by this because this is all the talk of the town on the radio, in the news. So I want to read 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter, because this is where this is all heading to. Yeah, 2nd Ezra 15 from verse 14. This is where it's all heading. Woe to the world and to them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition amongst men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their action shall stand in their power. So that's what this is all coming towards, because it says that the people are not going to regard their kings nor princes. And one of the things that's going to lead people, at least here in the UK at least, to this mindset is by having zero confidence and zero faith in their government. So in order to inspire zero confidence and zero faith in the government, stories like this have to be blown up in the mainstream for the people to get riled up by it. Because I think that the elites themselves are shocked at how docile the people have become. So in order to stir shit up, they've got to put stories like this into the media, right? It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. So what does that mean? It means that there's going to be checkpoints and you know, what do you call it? Martial law, where they're going to say, no, because of all the chaos, we're going to have to come down with a heavy hand and we're going to lock off this city. We're going to close down these roads, because that's what the elites want. They want to have complete, total and utter control and dominion over the people. So they need things like this to stir the people up, so they can create their problem. Then they have they create the problem, the people have the reaction, and then they come in with their heavy-handed solution. Because we're going to tie this to Revelation 12 and 12. Because the elites know they've got a short time, so they've got to accelerate things. So Revelation 12 and 12 says, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. So the elites know that their time is short. So all this stuff in the news about, you know, the Conservatives and coke in Parliament and lockdown parties where they were telling everybody else you have to social distance. This is all part of stirring the people up. So, Lord willing, I've made this clear. My articulating my thoughts on this situation, because I was listening to the radio and hearing these people talk shit, and all these people phoning in and talking shit and saying, "Oh, you need to get Boris out," and all this kind of shit. And you know what, man? As I've made pertinently clear, that's not going to solve the situation. That's not going to solve the situation, man. What's going to solve the situation, if you're an Israelite, is believing in the words of Yahweh and trusting in deliverance from Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. That's what's going to get us out of this. Voting Conservative or Lib Dem or Labour or whoever else, that's not going to change shit. So, I hope that's been edifying. With that, giving once again all praises, honor and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem HaKadosh, double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone at Woolwell, and shalom to you Akim that are preaching and teaching this word with faith and truth and sincerity. And Lord willing, I'll catch you on the next one. So shalom for now.